America, bonjour, hi, Canada. It's voting day in Minnesota. Cold to my affiliates in Duluth and Western Minnesota. Of course, to AM 1280, the Patriot listeners in the Twin Cities. Get out and vote. And if you're anywhere near Minnesota's third, vote for Tom Weiler, who is, I've long thought if Congress is ever going to get to the bottom of things, they need a submariner. And that is Tom Weiler. Good morning, Tom. How is your campaign going? And are people voting this morning?
Good morning, Hugh. Campaign's going great, and yeah, absolutely. It's primary day in Minnesota, so get out there and vote. Fortunately, in CD3 here, I have no Republican challenger, so we like our odds going into the primary today, and we've been focused on our general election to bring some common sense conservative leadership back to Minnesota's 3rd district.
The reason I want Republicans to vote, especially even if you're not running against an opponent, Tom, is it gives you a sense of where you are, and it gives the National Republican Congressional Committee an indication that you've got strong support going into the general. Tell people where Minnesota's third is, who you'll be running against probably as a Democrat, and how that race shapes up what it's going to be fought on.
Absolutely. This is the western suburbs of the Twin Cities, and the incumbent right now is Congressman Dean Phillips. He attempts to portray himself as a moderate in the district, but he has a 100% voting record with the failed policies of the Biden administration. And this was a conservative district for about 30 years when I was growing up here. And just 4 years ago, it did swing to the Democrat side with Congressman Phillips. But really, he and his voting record demonstrates that he's out of alignment with the true Midwestern conservative values that are still in the district. And fundamentally, he voted to defund the police and did not take a leadership stand when Minneapolis was rioted 2 summers ago in the summer of 2020. And he's also, voted yes on every spending and tax bill that the Biden administration has put forward, which has clearly contributed to the 9.1% inflation that all Minnesotans are feeling. In addition to my race, Hugh, there's a big race for governor and attorney general up here as well. And Hennepin County attorney. All of those races are incredibly important, mainly to provide the safety and security that the Twin Cities need, and also to get our economy moving in the right direction.
This spring, I moderated a debate of the 5 candidates for governor on the Republican side. I don't know who's going to win up there, but there'll be a good candidate. I want to ask you if you think Dean Phillips is going to vote for this so-called Inflation Reduction Act, which is really the IRS Expansion Act. If he does, he'll be voting to double the size of the IRS budget and hire 87,000 new IRS agents over 10 years. Do you think Dean Phillips is going to vote for that one as well?
Absolutely. He does not want to put a blemish on his 100% support for President Biden and Speaker Pelosi. But no, of course he will. He's been celebrating that passing the Senate already. And yeah, he's just out of touch with what real Minnesotans are feeling here in CD3. He's worth $100 million himself, so 9% inflation, and increased taxes across all economic groups isn't going to faze him, but it's definitely going to hurt the pocketbooks of Minnesotans in the 3rd district and hurt our economy even further.
Tom Weiler, your Twitter handle is Tom Weiler MN. That's spelled Tom Weiler MN. Of course, Minnesota for the Steelers fans. What's the website for your campaign, Tom?
It's WeilerForCongress.com. Again, it's WEILER and then spelled out forcongress.com. And we just launched a new website earlier this week, stepping up as we prepare for the general election. And there's plenty of information there about our campaign and how to donate and contribute to the campaign in other ways.
Tom, am I correct? There isn't another submariner in the Congress? I might be wrong about that, but I'm unaware of anyone who spent their time on attacks and boomers under the water.
No, I believe you're correct on that, Hugh. And I do think, especially as we look at the competition and competitiveness with China and Russia, the submarine force, along with space and cyber, I think are really the game changers moving forward. And if the Inflation Reduction Act, of course, which will raise inflation, but if they were looking to double any agency in the U.S. government, it might be the submarine force instead of the IRS.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more. Now, Tom Weiler, in terms of, did you finish out as a commander? Are you in the reserve still, or did you finish out as a commander?
No, I retired as a commander, got through executive officer, and then unfortunately, executive officer on the USS Michigan, and then unfortunately got diagnosed with Parkinson's disease just before my commanding officer tour. So I did not get my commanding officer tour in.
Well, that being an XO on a submarine, attack submarine, the USS Michigan, or is that a boomer?
Actually, that was an SSGN, so a converted boomer, former boomer, and then converted to a Tomahawk platform, and we did some special operations out of her as well.
How long do tours on a either the cruise missile Ohio class or the missile Ohio class? How long are those tours under the sea?
Well, you're attached to a boat about three years. Deployments for a fast attack are normally about 6 months at a time, and then the boomers go out anywhere from 2 to 6 months, depending on where they are in their operational cycle.
Now, are they still quiet beyond quiet? Can the Chinese track them, Tom Weiler?
Well, not to get into this classified information, but I've been out of that world for a little bit now, so I can talk about what it was like when I was there 2 years ago. And fortunately for us, our technology keeps getting better and better. But yes, we definitely have the advantage under the sea right now, and we need to keep it that way. And both China in particular and Russia continue to try to improve their underwater platforms, and we need to keep our competitive advantage in that area because that's really a game changer, like I said.
Boy, but we could use you in the Congress talking about the submarine fleet because if there is any, I talked about it with every candidate in 2016, the need to replace the Ohio class. Okay, we've got the Columbia class on the drawing boards, but it's been pushed out, delayed, it's over budget. And I don't think there's a more critical part of our nuclear deterrent than the future Columbia class, just like the Ohio class submarine currently at sea is the key to our backbone deterrent.
Absolutely. I mean, that is the number one priority for the Department of Defense is our nuclear deterrence, and the Columbia class and the Boomer class right now is the key element of that because, of course, we're going to be sustainable and fundamentally no one knows where the Boomers are operating when they're called and when they're needed.
Now, Tom Weiler, the Minnesota 3rd is a competitive district. It was just redrawn. I don't know what the incumbent Democrat's advantage is, but he does have $100 million. You need a lot of small donations, do you not?
Absolutely. Going up against an incumbent, it's name ID and getting enough resources to get our name and our message out there to the voters. And I think if we can raise that money, we'll be in great position on November 8th to return Minnesota's 3rd district back to the right side and bring some conservative Midwestern values to Washington, D.C.
I know you're working hard, as is your beautiful wife and family. I saw you at that debate I moderated. How is the turnout? How is the enthusiasm among Minnesota Republicans and independents to toss this guy out?
I think there's a lot of momentum. It's the hunt for the red November up here in Minnesota, and there's a lot of momentum, and a lot of that is just because the people in the 3rd district and throughout the Twin Cities, feel the impacts of this crime wave. That was unfortunately Minneapolis sort of the epicenter of the defund the police and empowering and emboldening criminals almost, and that crime is spreading out to the 3rd district. And Minnesotans have had enough of that. And as well, this is a 9% inflation and $5 gas. Minnesota's looking for a change, and we're ready to turn the ship around up here in Minnesota's 3rd district.
I'm about to do my ad for andrewandtodd.com. People want to buy a house, and interest rates have gotten away from them. Do you hear from young families like your own that want to buy a house and have just been priced out by Biden inflation?
Well, absolutely. I'm a middle class family. We have just retired from the military, 2 little kids, and yeah, between the inflation right now and the increased interest rates, it's just a completely different dynamic than it was 5 or 10 years ago, especially for young families. And we are seeing a lot of sort of more interest than normal from young voters, and really the young Republican voters in particular. There's definitely a surge that we haven't seen up here in the last couple cycles.
Last question, interest. Tom Weiler. Last night, the FBI raided President Trump's Mar-a-Lago home. How much does Trump come up on the campaign trail, and do you expect to be answering questions about that today?
It pops up, typically from the media trying to, or individuals in the media, trying to focus on the past and not the future. It definitely doesn't pop up from the constituents in Minnesota that I've spoken with. Like I said, they're worried about crime. They're worried about education. and they're worried about their family's financial future.
Tom Weiler, thank you for joining me. Weiler for Congress, WEILERFOR, Congress.com. If you're a submarine fleet person,